Hi everyone. Anxiety is something that a lot of people experience. There's different forms of anxiety. Anxiety has its place in your own psychology. Usually, we want to get rid of anxiety. It's like it is not a nice feeling. A lot of people tell me they would rather be depressed than anxious. It's just such an uncomfortable feeling. Anything that's uncomfortable, it's pushing you into a place of uncertainty, a place of the unknown. That's the place that you go to when you need to change. So often, particularly if you're in a place of comfort in your life, there's safety in your life, there'll be something that will come out, whether someone dies, you get a major illness, you lose your job, your partner leaves you, have a major health crisis, that pulls you out of this sense of maybe I wasn't safe. There's not a sense of safety anymore. There's uncertainty. There's an unknown of what will happen because the it's almost like the universe is pulling you out. You've sort of stopped growing when you're in a comfortable, safe place. You tend to not want to grow any further, and that in itself becomes an issue at some point. So life comes by and goes, oh, it's time for you to grow again. There's wisdom you need to look at. You need to accumulate here from these experiences. There's a bunch of emotions that need to be stirred up so you can look at what's actually in your psychology, so you can ultimately know yourself and know your true self and turn the focus of your life inward, rather than constantly trying to use the external world to fix all your problems. So anxiety is something that comes up. It's like that. It's like it'll come up, and it's like the more you ignore it, the more that builds power. Just like anything in the subconscious mind, the more you ignore the shadow, the bigger and more powerful it gets, because it's got something to say. It's got something that needs to be heard. It's like a friend that you've forgotten about, a very special friend who you've forgotten about. It just starts tapping you on the shoulder, and you just you can't feel it initially, so they start tapping louder until you look around and go, "Can I help you? What is it you have to say? Please tell me. You obviously have something that's very important for me to hear in my growth. You're there for my best interest." So so I want to have a think about that. Anxiety is a wisdom detector. That's its purpose. It's a wisdom detector. It's almost like a message from your soul that's telling you we need to look at this. That this isn't right here, and it's in the subconscious. It's hard to make conscious. There's techniques to do that, but it can be little things, and it can be a big thing to do with your identity. Our identity is one of the biggest things to break, and our sense of identity is one of the biggest things that causes us suffering. Our inability to be able to bend and be more flexible, have such rigid views, these things cause suffering. To hold on to resentment and unforgiveness, hold on to anger for months, years, decades, that causes issues. There's no wonder the body gets painful, has anxiety, because the soul's going, you need to look at this. This isn't in balance. So another way of thinking about anxiety is as if put on, you've turned the stove on, the burner's on, you put on a pot of water, the water's boiling, you put on a lid on the top, the lid's got a whistle thing that when it starts steaming, it starts whistling, then you just forget about it. You totally forget about it. It may take years for it to start to boil, but it starts to whistle, and you go, where's that whistling? Gee, the whistling is annoying. Why is that whistling? Where's that coming from? And then it gets so loud that you have to address it, and it's like, oh wow, I'm glad that whistle was on because this is going to burn dry. If I don't, it's going to maybe cause the house to burn down. I'm glad that whistle was on. So the whistle is the anxiety. So in a way, you can look at anxiety. Thank you. Thanks for showing me something that's so important. Some things, when anxiety is really strong, usually there's a massive realignment that needs to happen in your whole life. It's saying the wisdom here is that what you're doing is not going to work. It's not sustainable. You're being overwhelmed all the time and you don't care about yourself enough. You're going to burn yourself in the ground. You're going to cause a major illness. The relationships you have are going to be destroyed by your own negative thinking and emotions, because you're just not addressing the inner, real deep inner things. Even superficial inner things aren't being addressed. So, yeah, anxiety is your friend, and look at it, and often it's to do with boundaries. The first place to go is self-care. What do I need? I'm so uncomfortable. What do I need? Even speak to the anxiety as if it's a person. What do you need, friend? What do you need? What do you need to tell me? And your intuition will start to get glimpses of what it's about, and it'll hit home. That's part of how anxiety works, how intuition works. When you find out what it is, what those words are, it hits home as like, that's it. Far out. There's that trauma that I didn't know I needed to deal with. I forgot that even happened. That resentment, I need to deal with that, because if I don't, it's going to cause an illness in my body. It's definitely going to cause major problems in my psyche later in my life, because it's an area that doesn't have balance, doesn't have flow. Anything's out of balance won't let things flow in certain regions of your life. And things that aren't addressed tend to flow over and colour everything in your life. Food is a big one. So that your sense of identity, what food you eat as part of your identity. People who change their diet generally have a change in their identity. They become more flexible. You have to be more flexible if you're going to eat more healthily. You have to get over your own shortcomings to do with taste of food, and not being creative enough to make good food, and time to make good food, and that sort of stuff. And it may just be you simply need to stop focusing on the outside world, trying to make the outside world good all the time. Because we're trying to make the outside world good because you feel so bad and so chaotic inside. As people will always do that. They're so pedantic about having this correct in their life and that in order and that in its place, because they don't feel that inside themselves. The mirror needs to turn on the inside. And perhaps the anxiety is telling you, turn your focus on the inside if you really want to be happy, if you really want to understand yourself. I hope that helps everyone. This comes from a place of peace and love, and my own anxiety in my life. Anxiety for me is my PhD, and I've got a massive change with it. And no anxiety, I shouldn't say no anxiety. I don't want to ever lose anxiety, because that's what it is, it's a wisdom detector. I don't want that whistle to ever be switched off. But when I feel the anxiety, I don't let it not go on. I don't let it go on for ages. I look at it, what do you have to tell me? I'm open to what you're having to say, because it's in my best interest. And for me lately, it's been food and getting my gut right. The food choices I was eating was causing me food-related migraines, gluten intolerance, immune issues, and all sorts of stuff. So thank you, anxiety, for making me change that and get my gut health better. And within a week, pretty much the anxiety was gone. Thanks.